to the light docking tutorial. So I'm going to expose you on how to work around your Maestro, create a project, load your ligands, prepare them, load your protein, prepare them, generate your grid, perform your docking, and then your visualizations. So let's start. So this is the Maestro workspace. So we have our toolbar where you can select a lot of things, and then we have also the entry list. When you load a protein or a ligand, it comes here for ease of selection. And then also the structure hierarchy, it's similar to what is available in Discovery Studio. So you can see in this particular protein how many chains are there, how many ligands, how many water molecule, and then everything. So first thing, we might want to change our working directory so that it brings us to where we want to work. So I want to work here in my docking glide. I want my docking glide to be my working directory. Okay. Then I also want to create a new project called glide dock. Okay. Yeah. So the first thing we are going to do is let's load our protein, or let's start with ligand, right? So I'm going to import structures. So if you come here, I already deposited the structure in the CSV file. So in Maestro, you can import structures that are compounds that are already in structural format, like 2D, 3D, SDF, PDB, whatever, what have you, mole, and whatever. So you can look at the file types here. So these are the possible, even MOE files. You can import them. Most importantly, you can also keep your structure as comma separated files in CSV, Smile. So it also imports it. So, and that's what we're going to do. So I just have a list of structures. I think there are 19. Yes. So as I mentioned, this is the workspace navigator. So you can, okay. So this is the workspace navigator. Depending on the configuration of your mouse, you can use your left click or your right click to rotate the molecule. Okay. Then in the workspace, you can choose the next molecule. Yeah. So as you keep choosing, so as you can see, these are more like core generic series of compounds, just compound with the same scaffold, and then slightly different modifications at different at a particular point in the chain. So that's the compounds we are going to work on. Okay, so these are our compounds, and then you can see the hierarchy. Yeah, so they are available here. Okay, so what do? We're going to prepare this like that. As we mentioned in the tutorial, they need to be in the exact 3D shape, configurations, protonation states, pH, tautomeric states, and what have you, to be able to have a very, very good and solid docking experience, or at least, let's say, reliable docking, right? Okay, so you can as well select all the ligands here all at once by, click the first one, you hold down the shift and click the last one. So you're including all the 18 entries. That's also possible. So then you can as well just select them here. So all these are also possible. So what we do is we go to task, a task here, and then you can search for what you want. So leak prep. So ligand preparation is leak prep. So you can search for it. It's a module in Schrodinger. So all these things are presented as modules. So I can look for it. Then when it pops up, we can start working on it. So it's asking me where are my structures? Where will it find the structures? Okay, I say okay, use this structure from the project table. There are 23 selected structure in the project table. Say yes. So as you can see, 23 selected structure in the project table. Okay, so which force field? OPLS4 is the latest force field of from the Schrodinger group. So OPLS 2005 is the older one. Then should it neutralize the molecule, or it should not change it, or whatever, depending on what you want to do, especially when you understand your active site and then the nature of molecule you are working on. For example, these are compound. Some of them has places that can be protonated, nitrogens that can be protonated. So I might just say, oh, generate possible states at pH. Let's use pH of 7 using a peak. A peak is a Schrodinger module for handling pH and everything. So you can also ask it the salt. So if there is a salt, let's say compound S chloride or compound X sulfate, it can desalt it, remove the salt component, generate total mass. Okay, then what of chirality? It should just retain the original chirality. Then at most it should generate, to reduce the computation, we're going to ask it to generate only up to 1 per ligand. We don't want it to generate more than 1. If we say 2, the number of ligands are going to double, just like I mentioned in tutorial. The more you try to generate all possible conformers, the more you're increasing the size of your libraries that you use for docking. Then the output format is going to be a menstrual format. I think that's good for us. If it's a menstrual format, that is the output. Okay. And then there are some other things we can set. For example, here, you can just give it leak prep doc as the name. You can also, so I'm running on my local host. Yeah, so how many processors do I want to give it? Come on, 4 is fine from my local device. And then how many sub jobs? So if you are so Schrodinger allows you to separate your task into so many sub jobs to allow you to use parallelism. You understand? So you can send your separate jobs to different CPUs so that they are running at the same time. It's just a way to increase speed. Okay, so when we are done, we can click run, and then it will submit the job. Now it's still submitting the job. Once it starts running, it's going to tell us that it has okay, you can see the job just started running. Okay, so I can close this because I can always come back here and see that my leak prep doc is running. Okay, so let's give it a little time to finish running, then we continue. Okay, so it's done. It gave us a pop-up notification. Your leak prep doc has been incorporated. Okay, so let's see. So when it finished preparing a particular set of ligands, it's going to generate another set in the workspace navigator called leak prep doc out. So you see there are 94 compounds here. You see what I'm saying? So it generated total mass, generated, so many other things. So we can see several variations of the same compound. So you see the ligands are now taking their 3D shape, as you can see, assuming the necessary configurations that is consistent with their 3D structure, right? So we can see it here. You see this, right? So this is actually what ligand preparation should look like. Yeah. So this is what it should look like. And then, so we have like a lot of structures available here, up to 94 structures. So this is just simply how to prepare your ligand. Depending on what you want, you can make it elaborate or not. As I mentioned, your library size is a very critical point, critical factor in determining how much choices are available to you while preparing your ligand. Okay, I think we have to move on. Next, we are going to load our protein and also walk through it. Okay, so how do we import our protein? There are many ways. If you already have it downloaded, you can import it from your local device. Now, for now, we are going to just get it from the PDB directly. We just a PDB code. 1XS7 is our PDB code. Let's try to download it. Okay, so I think I need to be online to do that. Okay, so let's go again. Good. So our protein is here and our protein has been added also as an entry 1XS7. So we also get a notification, oh, the protein has arrived. So this protein is a protein of base 1 beta secretase enzyme 1 implicated in Alzheimer's disease. So we're going to be dealing with this protein during this talking. So as you can already see, there is a green structure within, which is the ligand. And then look at the structure hierarchy. You can clearly see that it's represented a structure for us. So this is the protein with labeled chain D. And then we also have a ligand here, which we have selected. So we're going to change the representation of the ligand so that we can see it better. Yeah. So this is our ligand in the active site of the protein, right? Okay. So what is our task? Our task is prepare this protein. So we'll go back to, I'm sorry, we'll go back to task, obviously. So protein, we're going to look for protein preparation workflow. Now it pops up and then it's a whole lot of things. There's a whole lot of actions available here. I'm just going to walk you through a few of them. So first of all, where should we use our structure from? Use from the workspace included entry. We just included an entry or selected. So you see, when you click these buttons, selection buttons, you can include a protein. I mean, you can include any structure in the workspace. And at the same time, when you select it here at this bar, it's called selection. So they're just two different technical words that, slightly mean different things. So we can use included because it's already in the workspace, right? Okay, so there's a whole lot of settings. We're going to run it at 7.0 pH, right? So, okay, so you can say, we can use the PDB value instead. So the protein was deposited at pH of 6.2. So maybe we'll use the PDB value instead at that pH to run it. So there is also a detected ligand, which is the co-crystal structure, right? Okay, so you can also see here in the pre-process, assign bond orders, use CCD database, replace hydrogens, and a whole lot of other things So should we add terminal oxygen to protein chain, fill missing residues using missing loops using prime? So prime is a module in Schrodinger that allows us to fill missing residues, right? Of the protein. So we can select all of these, generate heteroatomic states using a peak at the same pH 6.2. So we can also cap the terminal. Capping the terminal is important. The 5 prime and the 3 prime terminal. I mean, yeah, we can cap both of them with either the carboxylates and the amino ends just to make the protein stable during the docking. Then hydrogen bond assignment. So how should we treat protonation state? PropCar is just, I think it's just a simple tool that allows us to treat protonation states very, very clearly. Okay, at the same pH that we chose. Minimize and delete water. So the protein is in a stressed state. Remember, it's cutting from crystallography. And in crystallography, the protein is already fixed. It shouldn't move. So we want to relax it in what we call minimization. So using OPLS for force feed, as we mentioned, and then heavy atom RMSD 0.3. So the heavy atom shouldn't move more than 0.3 from the original positions. Okay. So when we are done, we can also set here what is the name, protein prep doc. We can give it the name, and then we are choosing for processors, and we'll say okay. And then okay, there's something else I wanted to show you, diagnostics. So you can also look at protein reliability reports. So it's one to show us what does our protein look like. I think to compute a few things and show us. Yeah. So for the entire structure, there is no report around the ligand. There is no report for a custom region. So I think, oh, it's a job that we need to run. Okay, we're not going to run that due to time. So, but you can run it to look at how reliable is your protein. Is your protein suitable for this docking? And then all that and all that. Yeah. So you can also look at substructures. So maybe, for example, you download a protein that has a lot of chains, a lot of co-crystal ligand and all that. So you can look at that. But for now, we're just focusing on the preparation workflow. Okay, so we are going to run the preparation. Okay, so our protein preparation has been incorporated. So we just received the notification now. So what does it look like? So we can see here that our protein has been incorporated, right? Okay, so let's see the prepared protein. So we can see a lot of other things in the prepared protein. Okay, so I want to extract the ligand out, the co-crystal ligand, because we need to also dock it, and then we need to use it to define our active site. So extract it to a new entry. I'm going to call it co-crystal leak. Good. So co-crystal ligand. So these are co-crystal ligand. So it's just simply extracted. Okay. So back to our protein, just very, very good. And then, yeah. So what's the next thing on our workflow? We need to define the grid box. Where do we want to perform the docking? So the grid box is defined exactly at where the co-crystal ligand was in the active site, right? So that's where the grid box is defined. Okay, so you go back to task and look for grid. So receptor grid generation. Then it pops up. So we are going to choose the ligand that will help us identify the active sites, right? So from N3, um, so these are ligands from the N3. So we chose the co-crystallized ligand from the N3 in the workspace navigator, right? Okay, so these are standard configuration, scaling factor of 1, partial charge cutoff. So use impute partial charge. Since we have already prepared the protein and the ligand, we can just use the impute charges. So site. So we are going to use the center of the workspace ligand. So what we just selected now. So the ligand will be what will define the active site for us, right? Okay, constraints. So this constraint is important if we want to define key interactions or key geometries that must be retained during the docking. For now, we'll be docking without any constraint because here you can define positional constraint or NOE constraint, nuclear overall effect. So you can also define hydrogen bond metal constraints, metal coordination or whatever. But we will not be working with any of them. Rotatable group, nothing. Excluded volume, nothing. So these are just some. So if you're also doing peptide docking, you can also generate grid that is suitable for peptide docking. So we just give it a new name, dock. Then we also direct it to the right, folder where it's going to store the grid box so that it doesn't give it a random location in the drive. Then we can run. Okay, sorry. I had to pick the ligand. It didn't identify the last one I picked. Okay, so okay. So I'm going to include both the receptor and the ligand in the active site. So that's what it needs because by choosing only the ligand, I excluded the protein. So I need both of them back in the active site. Okay, so let's see. So we can see both of them are in the active site and then the box can be defined. So we can now submit our job and then see it run. Okay, our job have started. And then it's running here. So give it a little time to run. So once it's done running, then it's time to do the docking and then look at our docking score, analyze it. But we have a lot of ligands, 90 something ligands, so it's going to also take us a little time to run the docking. And then we're going to visualize the output. So let's wait. Good. So our glide grid dock has been incorporated. So what is next for us on the task? Next for us on the task is actually to perform the docking. So you can search for ligand docking. Yeah. And then that's where it goes. So in ligand docking, all these steps you have followed through is now going to become very, very useful. So first of all, it's going to ask us from where should we get our grid box. So we are going to get it from a file. So obviously we just save the file somewhere here. So I think it's because we tried the glide grid a lot of times. So the one that works is the third time, the glide grid doc. So it's always a zipped file. So it's just a way to know it. Then we load the grid box. And for the ligands, how many ligands do we want to dock? So it's going to be, so we want to set the ligand from the um, project table is fine. So that will select a lot of it. We'll select all of them. Yes. And then can even select the co-crystal ligand too. Okay. So we've selected 95 ligands now from the project table. So we also use the same impute charges we've already computed. So we're also setting some limits. If the ligand is more than 500 atoms, don't dock it. And then if it has more than 100 rotatable bonds, you can play with this. Then we also look at setting. So what kind of precision do we want to use? HTVS. So this is just the level of thoroughness that the glide module gives during the docking. So it can start from low to high. So HTVS is the lowest, so no strong restraint. Then SP, XP, and then all that. So XP is the extra precision. So we'll just stay at the standard precision. So if you want to tighten the neck, that's what we say. But want to make it more thorough, more reliable, you increase the precision. But SP is just fine for us. The ligand sampling is okay. Now our ligand should be flexible in the active site, very important. If not, we might not get the right pose. Sample nitrogen inversion, sample ring confirmation, everything at the peak state. So constraint, we are not defining any constraint. So no pharmacophore, no nothing. So outputs. So we want the file type to be a post-viewer file, that is a Schrodinger file. Then we just want it to limit to write just one pose per ligand. So we don't want a lot of poses to reduce on it, but if you are doing a project that you need to identify a ligand for subsequent use in the drug discovery workflow, you might want to increase the number of poses to like 5, so that even if you find the best binder, you can decide which of the pose give the best interaction, right? So post docking minimization, number of poses per ligand to include 5, I think is much. I think 3 is fine. Okay, so these are just, the normal setting. Then also here, we can also call it dock, just to make everything fine. For processors, I can increase it to 5. And then I can try to run this. So it's going to take a hell lot of time. So we'll just be ready to wait. Right, so finally our job has been incorporated. So we are done with the glide docking. So next we are going to look at the output of this docking, and then we're going to visualize it. So look at the glide dock here. You can see both for the co-crystal ligand and all the ligands that we worked on. So next on the list, our glide docking had finished. So we need to look at the results of our docking. So the first thing I want to look at is we'll go back to our projects where we saved our projects, as you can see here. So you're going to see the glide dock SP. You remember we used the standard precision. So when you open it, you're going to see a lot of files. Most importantly, are the post view file. So in case you just want to give someone your docking, the output of your docking. So post view file is just the PDBs, not necessarily in PDB, they're in Mistral structure, but so that they can be converted. But it's a combination of all the structures and how they docked. So you can just export it to the person. The other thing that is most important is the CSV file that gives you the compounds and their binding energy. So we're going to open it. So when we open it, you're going to see the list of our compounds, the title they are given, and then this is the ligand ID, whatever. But we're interested in the docking score. So when you look at the docking score, it's not yet sorted, as you can see. So look at all our docking scores. Now, many of these terms are breakdown or components that make up the docking score. So yeah, components that make up the docking score. For example, lipophilicity, H bond. So usually is the summation of these components that eventually gives us the full docking score. But our focus will be on the docking score. So let's first of all sort out this. So we're going to sort by the docking score. Yeah, smallest to largest. Okay. Now we see that our co-crystals ligand is actually the best performing. It's the best binder according to the docking score. So I want you to look at this column. It's the best binder according to the docking score, followed by compounds at 60, 6S, and 6E. So we're going to focus on these three compounds, or at least two of them, 6T and 6S, right? Okay, so we'll go back to menstrual, and then we'll remember after the docking, it also generates, in the workspace, it also generates a different section called glide dock, SP dock, PV, with the protein and all the docked compounds. So remember, we're focusing on the 6T and the 6S. So let's look at 6T. So these are 6T, right? Okay, so we might want to alter the style a little. Maybe we'll give it this style and then give it a unique coloring. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Then for 6S, we might also want to give it its own color. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's not me. I'm just trying to know that I can give it a true atom color. Okay. Now, so what we are going to do is we will load our receptor, and then to also enhance our visualization, I would want us to add a ribbon to our receptor just to help us, because this protein is very, very important. I mean, we have been working on it, and it has a loop called the beta sheet loop, which spans from this region. So it's this loop from this region up to this point. So this is where the active site is. So that's where our molecules are going to collocate. Okay. So because the co-crystal ligand is already in this shape, right? So we might just want to load the three of them and then load our protein. And then you see how I load it just by pressing your control and then including many terms into the workspace field, right? So we can already see that all of them collocated at the binding site at the same position as the native ligand, right? Okay. Now, let's let's visualize the interaction between 60 and 1xsf, right? So we'll look at ligand interaction, and then it pops up. So we can see the interaction of our compound with the most important residues at the binding site. So this is asp228, this is glide230. At least both of them are the key interactions. So you can look at which ones are having hydrogen bonding. You see both of them disappears. So these are the two key hydrogen bonding interactions, asp228 and glide230. And it's interesting to know that asp228 and asp32, this is asp, it's just within ASH because maybe it was protonated during the protein preparation, but it's also an aspartate residue. So this ASH32 is ASH32 and ASP228. They are important residues. They are called the catalytic diad. Two of them mediate the proteolytic catalysis in the active site of the protein. So this is beautiful, right? And then yeah, so basically this, and you can save the image for your publication in PNG or SVG, whichever format you like, and then you can put it in your paper or whatever. So these are the interactions that are available. You can toggle some of these um, options to either increase or decrease the kind of interactions you are interested in, right? Yes. So yeah, 1 letter code. If you want the proteins to have the residues to have 1 letter code, you can do it. If you just want that, you can. So this is how to visualize interactions in Schrodinger after your glide docking, right? Okay, so we can do the same thing with 6s. Okay, so let's see ligand interaction. Okay, with 6s. So let me untoggle the 1 letter code. So this is threonine 72, glycine 73. So these are the key interactions that it had with our ligand, which is 6s. So are they hydrogen bonds? Yes, they are. So they are key hydrogen bonding interactions. Okay, so and you can also export it. You can also do some settings here. Yeah. Okay. So this is basically how it is done. Then when you think your structure is fine, your duct ligand is fine, you want to take it further, maybe you want to set it up for molecular dynamic simulation or some other things, yeah, you can export the structure. So you can export this particular structure. So export structure, then you can choose the format. Most likely you might want to send it out as Mo2 or PDB because menstrual structure is a proprietary structure. So not available in many other software. So you won't want your structure to be going around in software in proprietary formats. Yeah, because many softwares don't support menstrual. So you may want it to as Mo2 or at best PDB, right? And then you send it or you ship it out. So you can do that. At the same way, you can select all the ligands, but if you're interested into ligands, you can send them out and then later on, visualize them in any of your specific tool that you are interested in. Okay, so that is all in the glide tool. We have been able to see how to import our structures, how to prepare a ligand, prepare a protein, generate grid box, perform our docking, and then analyze it, interact with it, and see the kind of interactions that are happening with our ligands with the ligand and the protein.